My name is Krittika, and today I'll be identifying the social and emotional impacts of white privilege and illustrating this issue through the use of the arts. Think amongst yourselves right now. What have you been given in this Australian society in 2018? Do you see your skin colour often in advertising? Or do you ever be questioned, well, where are you really from? Well, these questions I am asking today is relating to the issues of white privilege, not only nationally but internationally too. This trimester in World Indigenous Knowledges, I have explored how the differences and influences of white privilege have made a major impact on one's life. Popop Chuck states that white privilege can be defined as the benefits of access to resources, social rewards, and the power to actually shape the values of society that Caucasian peoples receive. This can be unconsciously or consciously, by virtue of one's skin colour. Throughout the 1970s, Indigenous Australians were isolated and their freedom was restricted by colonial government legislations. They had to have government consent to actually marry and to have sexual contact with any relation. Whereas in that time, white Australians could actually have any power over their body and their self. So in the course textbook, Harrison and Selwood mention that educational environments and schools had poor social justice systems in the past and were degrading by having the power to actually exclude Indigenous students simply because they were Indigenous. These are two of many examples of the restrictions brought upon Indigenous Australians, which clearly identify how privileged white people were in this time in history. Today, white privilege can be seen in the media, shopping centres, and even educational environments. There can even be subtle ways, including skin colour pencils, band-aids, and stockings. By acknowledging only one certain skin colour on commonly used products is discriminating against every other skin colour. Robert Campbell Jr. was an Indigenous visual artist who incorporated symbolism and Aboriginal pointillism, which is also known as dot paintings. In 1987, Campbell created a piece which drew a depiction of the truthful past of Aboriginal peoples during the 1960s, called Barred from the Baths, which consisted the mediums of acrylic paint on canvas. As you can see in the artwork, the artist has used lightness and darkness to portray the two defined groups, one who is more privileged to enter the pool. You can see that Aboriginal Australians are placed outside of the fence, unable to access the same leisures. Campbell states that I'm telling stories, the struggle of Aboriginal people, tribal and others, through my life and the truth that took place. As you can see, opportunities are shown to be more available to the white peoples, which demonstrates the term white privilege in the artwork. In relation to opportunity and education, the teacher standards and code of ethics demonstrates how you should create high expectations on your students, while treating them as unique heterogeneous individuals. This second arts example is a graphic design piece created in 1914 to advertise a white-only society within Australia. This picture is of an advertisement for a game that states at the bottom, White Australia Puzzle, get the coloured men out and the white men in. This is in relation to migration laws of British Immigration Restriction Act in 1901 of the White Australian Policy. The yellow and warm colours in the image are representing a romanticised notion that this act is okay and is doing no harm. The act stated that people wanting to migrate to Australia had to complete a test which was only written in very few European languages. This was a deliberate movement which discriminated against people from Asia, the Pacific Islands, and to also breed out Indigenous Australians at that time. Campbell's artwork shows how the Indigenous peoples are dressing as white Australians and trying to match the expectations from the government. Due to stereotyping and white privilege, expectations on Indigenous and other ethnicities other than Australian students are often lowered, creating the process of deficient thinking. This then leads to less opportunities for these students, which then affects their overall future. Mentally, some teachers are racially segregating their students into unrealistic groups labelled as successful and unsuccessful due to these negative stereotypes. As a pre-service teacher, I am wanting to assure that all students know of my high expectations of them, and that I believe that they will reach them no matter what ethnicity or colour they are. I'll educate and challenge my students about issues in society relating to white privilege and raise awareness and appreciation of the Indigenous cultures of the world, and to challenge myself as an educator. My future pedagogies will include land-based learning and meeting of Indigenous Australian elders, the use of the arts to guide teaching as a means of transformation, and my students will also learn to acknowledge Indigenous Australians and to have an in-depth experience of the traditional elders of this land.